When I first saw Daido Moriyama's work, I thought it was a mistake. Blurry, chaotic, shot without even looking through the viewfinder. Then I realized that he understood about street photography, something that no one else has thought before. And that changed the whole medium. Once you understand the 7 points that I'm making now, it will change your street photography forever, and your photography, and so much. I'm so excited about Daido Moriyama. Hi, it's Peter here. Now, what did Moriyama understand that most street photographers miss? Let's start with the most radical one, or the radical set. I've divided this into 3 different parts with several topics in each, and I will show some of my photography that was inspired by Daido Moriyama, because I went out for a photo walk and tried to get into his way of thinking, because that is something that we all should do when we look at other people's work. Try to mimic, not copy it, but try to get into their state of mind and see what comes out. The first set is about his mind shift. Forget conventional rules. Moriyama believed that everything you learned in photography is actually blocking and bad for you. It prevents you making images that you actually want to make. The photographer who attempts to fit happily into the world by using the traditional perspective of the camera will end up falling into the hole of the idea he has dug for himself. He's saying that we're too obsessed about the rules of photography, the rule of thirds, the compositional rules, rule of thirds, perfect exposure, sharp focus. And then if you are concentrating on these, you lose your sight. You don't see it anymore. And you're following a formula. You're following some rules that someone has set. And that's the point of what he's saying, that it is bad for you. You've seen a few of his images, and those images feel raw and alive because he wasn't thinking about technique. He was reacting what was in front of him. And I think that's the main essence, reacting what was in front of him. And I think that's a profound thing that was a little bit different from before. And here is what you can do. Set your camera to P mode and don't worry about the exposure. Just shoot. Go and fire away and see how that affects your photography, because once you forget about the techniques and all that, it will open up your mind and you start seeing. As Moriyama said, the technique, thinking about the technique will block your vision. And then the second thing, desire as the driver. For Moriyama, photography is not about documenting. It's about desire, the raw emotional impulse to capture something that moves you. I have always felt that the world is an erotic place. For me, cities are enormous bodies of people's desires, and as I search for my own desire within them, I slice into time, seeing the moment. That's the kind of camera work I like. And this is profound. He's not shooting because something is photogenic. He's shooting because he feels compelled, almost obsessed what he sees. And that desire creates the connection between the photographer, subject, and the viewer. And I think that is the essence. The subject is connected with the photographer and the viewer. That's something that technical expertise or technical quality can never achieve. And I think that's the most important thing on this one. What you could do is to ask yourself just before you press the shutter that, do I actually want to photograph this? If you don't feel anything, then don't take the photograph, or take a photograph of something that you feel something, or when you feel something. I think that's the point, or the way you can practice this. And when photography becomes driven by desire, that will change quite a bit. Make photography a way of being. This is where Moriyama's philosophy becomes transformative. For him, photography isn't just an activity, it is a state of existence. Nowadays, people take photos casually, especially of their daily lives. The casual attitude towards photography is the same as mine. There is nothing right or wrong. He lives through his camera, and it's how he experienced the world. And that is something that we could all do. And I know it's really that rough or tough to do during your everyday life. And try to learn something about how people use their mobile phones. It's very casual photography. They live through that. They document their lives and use their phone every day, photograph their food and record their lives. I'm not saying that you should do that. but learn the philosophy of that the camera becomes the extension of your everyday life, your mind. And the way to practice this is, of course, to have a camera with you every time you go out, and not saying that it should be in a camera bag, but have it in your hand or in your neck. It depends on which way you want to do, and photograph everything that you see. Document your everyday lives. Photograph everything that you find interesting. That's Moriyama's state of mind. And when I'm talking about these, it doesn't mean that you have to switch your whole idea or your whole style or your genre, but try to incorporate these ideas into your photography and let your mind loose, and especially forget about the technical things and the rules, as I already said at the beginning. That will profoundly change your way of making the images you make. And also, I bet they will be better, and you will be more happy about your photography. Now that we have talked about shifting our minds, so how to practice that? Of course, the first one is just go out and shoot. With this new mindset, the next step is, yes, go out and shoot. The first thing I always tell anyone who asks me for advice is get outside. The problem for many of us is that we try to plan too many photo shoots that we have. And if we're doing street photography, don't have a plan. Just go out, photograph how you feel, and photograph whatever you see in front of you. And I'm guilty of that planning, because I always have a plan when I go out, and I should, try not to. But it has worked for me. But since I was photographing for this video, I wanted to try his method because of this particular thing. And I went out and just tried to photograph how I felt and how he would have approached the scenes. I'm not saying that my images are as good, but the idea that I was incorporating on my photo walk is something that he would have done. And of course, my images are the way I see it, because we all see different because of our background and stuff, and we have a different place. We live in a different city that we're photographing, and we looking into different things. And that's why, of course, our images will be different. But it's all about the state of mind that will shift our photography. For you, the practice could be that walk out the door, walk for 30 minutes, and then just continue shooting, and don't come back if you don't have 50 images. And see what happens. Try to photograph everything that is interesting, that you find interesting. Intuitive and immediate reaction. This is where Moriyama's approach becomes almost instinctive, like a reflex rather than a decision. I wish to take photographs freely without technical restrictions. For example, I take most of my snapshots from a moving car or without looking through the viewfinder when I'm on foot. You might say I take photographs not only with my eyes, but with my entire body. And when you're shooting with the whole of your body and feeling the gut, it's kind of like the subconscious that drives you and reflexes. And if you start shooting consciously, that will block you, because then you start overthinking. And that is one of the biggest thing on street photography. If you overthink the photographs, you won't get anywhere. You just need to start reacting what's around you, and reacting and pressing that shutter. Just fire away and don't hesitate. Let your subconscious work for you. And for your next photo walk, I have this assignment. Take 20 shots without looking through the viewfinder. Shoot from the hip, from the chest level, round the corner when you turn, just click it away. And yeah, you will have a lot of bad photographs. And this takes me to the next point, which is really important to understand. And it's probably the hardest for all of us. And this also is something that every photographer that you ever explore or look at his or her work is in the essence. And that is embrace imperfections. Yeah, you probably heard that before. You will have a lot of messy, blurry, unsharp images if you do what I said in the previous tip. For me, capturing what I feel with my body is more important than the technicalities of photography. If the image is shaking, it's okay. It's out of focus, it's okay. Clarity isn't what photography is about. And I think the last sentence is, clarity isn't what photography is about. And his photograph, as you've seen on this video, that Moriyama's photographs are blurry, grainy, out of focus, completely challenge the traditional aesthetics and all that. Here is something that we all miss, and this is something that I struggle every time, that it is the imperfections that makes the emotional depth to a photograph. And that usually make the image a little bit better. And I've talked this, as I said, many times in my videos about the brace, the mistakes and the imperfections, because that makes the image a lot more interesting than just technically perfect image. It's just a surface. But having those little mistakes and maybe even random mistakes makes the image a lot more interesting and has more depth. And that's why I think this is also one of the key points of Moriyama's work is the mistakes that he makes when he photographs. And when you start embracing the messiness of your images, you're finally ready for the most profound lesson, and that is rebellion and exploration. And this is the ultimate lesson, and it is what separates documentary from art. It may look, I'm just pointing the camera at what's in front of me, but I'm trying to photograph what people see, but don't notice, something that's mysterious and unknown in everyday life. Well, Moriyama doesn't want to photograph, everything that shines, and he's not the documentary style, and he embraces restless, rebellious vision that reveals the darker, overlooked, mysterious sides of urban life. And he uses unconventional framing, extreme high contrast, and the raw snapshot aesthetics to show us what always been there, but is invisible. And this is something that we start seeing when we wander around the streets with open mind. We start to see things that we haven't noticed before or other people don't see. And yeah, if we see something that we haven't noticed before, we might find it interesting. Well, take the shot and see what comes out. Don't photograph what everyone else photographs. Go to a famous place where there are a lot of people photographing, and do not photograph the same thing the others did. Photograph to the other direction and see what's there. It might be a lot more interesting photograph. And then there's one more thing for the extra tip that Moriyama believed. The photography as a democratic art. And Moriyama had a very radical idea what photography is. Photography must have a horizontal relationships to the world. What this meant is that he didn't like that photography was an elitist thing, and even he himself, he wanted to have his photographs published in small magazines and not in big galleries, art galleries and precious magazines, because he thought that photography should be for everyone and not just for elitists. And he even had his own publication called Record, which I don't have any copies, but it's something that I might get because they're really interesting way of publishing your work. And he presented to be an elitist, and I think he thought that photography should be for everyone and for everyone to see, and not just, shiny prints in a big galleries where people are, having champagne and nice clothes and stuff. But it should be for all of us. And I really like that thing, because it's the biggest problem that many photographers have, and especially in the art world, that they've done kind of too good for the common people and they are above us. And I don't think that's the right way. I think we should all be horizontal in that sense, because the photographers that are famous are not any better than anyone else. They just, they might be better photographers, but they might not be better human beings. We all, in that sense, we're quite equal. So that's one thing that I like about Moriyama's idea and philosophy. But now it's time for you to go out and photograph and try to pick one of these things that I've said in this video and see how that will change your photography. What did you find to be the most interesting or maybe controversial, or did you disagree with what I've said, or do I misinterpreted what Moriyama's world was when it comes to photography? And here are some more videos about famous photographers. But hey, thanks for watching, and bye for now.